Imagine, if you will, that you are stepping through the quiet city of Constantinople long after the sun has sunk below the horizon, leaving the world in a delicate veil of twilight. The city seems to breathe around you, the narrow streets narrowing and widening like the gentle ebb and flow of some living creature. The final merchants have shuttered their stalls, their voices fading, their wares packed and wrapped. Somewhere, the faint clatter of a horse's hooves resounds against the cobblestones, a soft echo that carries across the cool, fragrant night. In this hour, the city has softened. It has shed its bustle and become a place where shadows lean into one another, where lantern light pools in soft, golden glows that feel almost sacred. The air itself is intoxicating. It carries the brine of the Bosporus, teasing the edges of your senses with the scent of salt and the faint chill of distant waters. But beneath the sea's coolness is a richness, a warmth brought by spices traded from the far reaches of the empire, cinnamon, clove, and cardamom, drifting subtly from kitchens and bakeries. And then, almost imperceptibly, a sweetness, rosewater, its fragrance delicate, floral, curling around you like an invisible silk scarf. You breathe in slowly, deeply, feeling it cling to your skin, a soft caress that hints at indulgence and pleasure before you even reach the palace gates. As you walk, Constantinople stretches before you like a city of dreams, its domes rising like islands in a sea of darkened streets, minarets reaching for the stars. Lanterns glow in the distance, flickering on marble and stone, on the corners of streets, atop the shallow steps of temples, and along the terraces of merchant homes. The light is soft, fluid, dancing in patterns you almost expect to follow, as though the city itself guides you along its secret paths. Somewhere nearby, a fountain gurgles quietly, the water reflecting the glow of torchlight as it catches the night. You notice, perhaps without realizing it, the faint scent of honey drifting from a nearby bakery, still warm, still sweet, still waiting to be savored. Ahead, the palace rises, not as a simple building, but as a dream materialized in marble, gold, and mosaic. Its bronze gates are massive, adorned with carvings of emperors, saints, and angels, all frozen in poses of eternal watchfulness. They rise like guardians of the night, silent but present, their presence both protective and inviting. The gates are open for you, as though they have been waiting, their hinges whispering a quiet welcome as you pass through. The guards themselves are serene in their gilded armor. They move with measured, deliberate grace, their sandals clicking softly against the polished marble floors. Their faces are calm, unreadable, yet their eyes hold a spark of curiosity, a glimmer of amusement. Perhaps they see in you a reflection of their own anticipation. You notice the subtle way their hands rest on hilts, not threatening, but attentive. The palace does not need violence. Its power lies in suggestion, in presence, in the quiet allure of its walls and corridors. You step inside. The air immediately changes. It grows warmer, richer, and carries a perfume of honey and musk that mingles with the faint jasmine brought from distant gardens. Candlelight flickers along the walls, dancing across mosaics of saints, emperors, and victories long past, turning each figure into something alive, something watching. The tesserae glimmer in gold and sapphire, 1,000 points of reflected light guiding your steps deeper into the palace. Each mosaic seems to lean closer, as if eager to witness the journey, to hold the secret of your presence. Every footstep echoes softly, reverberating along high ceilings and vaulted halls. There is a rhythm to the echo, a subtle cadence that your body begins to follow without conscious thought. The walls themselves seem to pulse gently with the same rhythm, as though the palace is breathing alongside you. Shadows move with a life of their own, cast long and thin by the flickering torches, curling along the marble floors and coiling around the gilded banisters. You feel the faint brush of silk as a passing courtier drifts through the corridor. The sensation is fleeting, almost imagined, but it lingers like a whisper. The anticipation grows with every step. Somewhere beyond the corridors, music begins to drift toward you. It is subtle at first, a gentle pluck of strings, the soft sigh of a flute, a low drum vibrating in resonance with your own heartbeat. It is not demanding attention, it flows around you, caressing the edges of your awareness, a lullaby that is at once hypnotic and awakening. You can feel the vibration of each note as it hums through the air, through the floors, the walls, your very bones. You pause in a small courtyard, a secret garden tucked within the palace's labyrinthine walls. Moonlight spills over fountains, sending silvered ripples across the surface of the water. The scent of night-blooming jasmine swirls in the air, mingling with the faint perfume of incense from a nearby chamber. You inhale, and the fragrance seems to sink into your chest, filling you with a warmth that is both comforting and electric. The breeze carries whispers, perhaps from the trees, perhaps from unseen voices, faint laughter, the soft brush of fabric on skin, movements almost imperceptible in the shadows. The palace seems alive. You sense it as you would sense another person in the room, aware of your presence, watching with patience, waiting for you to move further into its embrace. The mosaics along the walls catch the torchlight and shimmer, the faces of saints and emperors seeming to lean closer as if sharing a private secret. The columns rise to high ceilings, smooth and cold to the touch, but in the flickering light they appear soft, pliant, almost like silk in structure. Your hand brushes against one, and though nothing moves, you feel a shiver of sensation, as if the stone itself is aware of your passing. A subtle warmth brushes your neck, the presence of someone else nearby, perhaps a courtier returning from the banquet hall, their robe trailing silk across the polished floor. The scent of their perfume mingles with the night jasmine, musk, amber, rose. It is gentle, teasing, suggestive without boldness. A glance over the shoulder hints at eyes meeting yours for a heartbeat, a spark of curiosity, a promise of indulgence before disappearing into shadow. You continue onward, deeper into the palace, your footsteps echoing softly, keeping time with the music that grows ever so slightly in volume. It is a melody both inviting and restrained, a slow, languid rhythm that makes your heart rate ease into its cadence. Each note caresses the corridors. Each vibration seems to brush your skin, brushing across shoulders and arms like silk. The air grows warmer still, carrying with it a sweetness that is almost edible, that teases the senses with the promise of richness yet unseen. Along the way, the walls give glimpses into hidden chambers. Curtains of deep sapphire and crimson silk ripple in the faint draft of night. alcoves lined with cushions and low tables where whispers echo in rhythm with laughter. You hear fragments of words, soft murmurs, invitations not meant for all eyes, not meant for all ears. You feel the pulse of anticipation, the subtle erotic charge of eyes meeting yours, of lips nearly touching, of hands brushing and passing. It is the kind of intimacy that is felt rather than seen, imagined rather than witnessed, an unspoken language of pleasure and indulgence woven into the very fabric of the palace.
And then, finally, you reach the main corridor leading toward the banquet hall. The air is thick with scent, honey, spices, wine, perfumed oils. Candlelight flickers along the gold and sapphire mosaics, catching in the jeweled embroidery of robes and the polished surfaces of bronze and silver. You notice the faint glimmer of gemstones on rings and necklaces as courtiers pass by, the subtle sway of fabric as bodies move with deliberate grace, the almost imperceptible brush of silk that hints at something more intimate beneath the surface. It is here, in this corridor, that the palace truly welcomes you. You are no longer merely a visitor. You are part of its rhythm, its music, its secret dance. Each breath you take is filled with the warmth of the night, the sweetness of perfumed air, the soft rhythm of distant music, the gentle brush of silk and skin that promises indulgence without demand. Every heartbeat matches the flicker of candlelight, the murmur of distant laughter, the gentle splash of water from hidden fountains. You pause again, taking in the grandeur, the richness, the anticipation. The palace waits, holding its breath, drawing you forward. You feel your senses stretching outward, tasting the scents, feeling the textures, hearing the music in your very bones. And then, at last, the doorway to the banquet hall comes into view, open wide, inviting, shimmering with light and promise. Beyond it lies the heart of the court, the center of indulgence, where the forbidden pleasures of the Byzantine emperors await in silence, in shadow, in anticipation.
The doors open and suddenly the world shifts. The hall stretches before you, enormous and golden, lined with polished marble floors and mosaics that shimmer in torchlight. Every surface glows faintly, as if the walls themselves have been imbued with light, each figure, saints, emperors, angels, caught in the flicker of flame. The air is rich with scents that make your senses stand at attention. Honey, saffron, roasted pomegranate, warm spices, frankincense, and the subtle musk of perfumed silk. It is a perfume so potent that it feels like it could envelop you entirely, pressing against your skin, teasing your imagination. Long tables groan under the weight of abundance. Platters of roasted peacocks glisten. Candied figs and sugared almonds shine like jewels. Crystal bowls spill over with grapes glistening in juice, golden goblets brimming with wine whose surface catches the light in ruby reflections. Each dish carries its own aroma, its own story, and as you inhale, the scents mingle in a hypnotic symphony. The earthy tang of roasted meats, the sugary sweetness of fruits, the subtle bitterness of crushed spices, and the warm undertone of wine that has aged just enough to become a velvet caress for the tongue. Courtiers recline along cushions embroidered with gold thread and gemstones, their robes spilling across the floor in cascading waves of emerald, sapphire, and crimson. Their movements are deliberate, languid, each gesture calculated to draw attention without seeming to do so. Fingers hover over goblets, resting lightly on the edges of silver platters. Hands brush against fruit, lifting it slowly, and then, almost teasingly, brushing against another's palm or sleeve. Eyes meet across the hall, lingering a heartbeat too long, smiles curling with subtle, unspoken invitation. The music is soft but pervasive, flowing through the hall like a river. Harps pluck gently, flutes sigh. A drum vibrates low and steady, mimicking the very rhythm of a heartbeat. You feel it in your chest, in your back, in the hollow of your bones. Every note carries a weight, a suggestion, a promise. It moves with the flicker of torchlight, moving with the sway of the courtiers, moving with you. The melody is neither demanding nor intrusive. It is an invisible hand guiding your awareness toward indulgence, toward intimacy, toward the whispered pleasures that lie just beyond the surface. Servants drift through the hall like shadows, their movements precise and deliberate, filling goblets before they empty, offering platters of delicacies to those whose eyes wander with curiosity or desire. The servants themselves are calm, practiced, aware of every glance, every subtle touch. They place a slice of roasted fig in the hand of one courtier, and as he raises it to his lips, another's fingers brush against his in passing, a fleeting, almost imperceptible contact, yet it lingers in the mind, a whisper of sensation. And then there is the wine. Poured into goblets of gold and crystal, it glows like liquid fire. It is rich, sweet, and heavy, warming the throat as it slides down, loosening the voice, easing the body into languid relaxation. Sip by sip, it becomes a conduit for indulgence, for laughter that lingers, for eyes that meet with intent, for hands that hover and retreat in a dance of anticipation. You notice the fabrics around you, the soft give of silk under fingers, the gentle sway of robes as courtiers move, the way velvet cushions absorb and reflect the slightest pressure. Every touch, every movement is accentuated in this hall, heightened by the flickering torchlight and the richness of the aromas. The sensation is subtle, erotic in suggestion rather than action. The brush of a sleeve along an arm, the faint warmth of another's hand near yours, the soft glimmer of a smile caught in torchlight. Your attention drifts across the hall, taking in the details. The roasted peacocks, their skin glistening with saffron and honey, almost shimmer in the candlelight. Golden bowls spill over with fruits so vivid that they seem to pulse with life. Figs split to reveal their interiors in crimson, grapes clustered like tiny drops of ruby, slices of melon glistening with dew. Candied almonds glimmer like snow under the flame, their surfaces smooth, sweet, inviting.
Every plate is arranged with care, designed not only to satisfy hunger, but to delight the eyes, to stir curiosity, to tease the imagination. Courtiers move slowly, each gesture deliberate, almost choreographed. One leans back, allowing a hand to rest near a jewel-encrusted goblet, fingertips trailing along the gold edge. Another tilts ahead, allowing her hair to fall in soft waves, brushing against a neighboring shoulder. Their eyes meet across the hall, communicating in a language unspoken but deeply understood. The air grows thicker with suggestion, with anticipation, with the unspoken promise of touch and attention. The music continues, layering itself over the feast, over the glimmer of candlelight on marble floors. The harp's strings pluck with gentle insistence. The flute exhales a slow, soft note that seems to curl around the listeners like a warm embrace. The low drum vibrates against the floor, matching the subtle rise and fall of breath throughout the hall. You feel it in your chest, in your feet, along your spine, a rhythm that synchronizes with the languid movements of the courtiers, with the flow of wine, with the slow, deliberate pace of anticipation that fills the air. Fingers hover over platters, brushing lightly over fruit and nuts before lifting them to lips. There is an intimacy in these gestures, a subtle eroticism that is more about suggestion than act, a stolen touch, a glance that lingers, a smile that promises more than words could ever convey. The air itself seems charged with a delicate tension, an almost tangible undercurrent of desire, restrained and refined, yet impossible to ignore. You hear laughter, soft, musical, intimate, threading through the music, winding around the tables like a delicate ribbon. Some is playful, some conspiratorial, some teasing. The voices are low, measured, each syllable chosen with care, carrying a weight that draws attention without demanding it. Eyes follow the movement of a hand, the tilt of a head, the curve of a smile. You sense more than see the unfolding of desire, a choreography of glances, gestures, and subtle movements that heightens the richness of the hall, the depth of the night, and the lingering sense of indulgence. Everywhere, the senses are engaged. The taste of honeyed wine lingers on the tongue. The warmth of the air brushes against the skin. The sense of roasted meats, fruits, spices, and perfume mingle into a single, intoxicating presence. Candlelight flickers across gold and silver, on jeweled rings and embroidered robes, tracing lines of shimmer and shadow across bodies and objects alike. Music wraps around you, soft yet insistent, guiding attention toward the pleasure of sensation, the quiet thrill of suggestion, the intimacy of anticipation. The banquet hall stretches on, seemingly without end. Each table offers new delights. Each cushion invites relaxation. Each glance suggests secret indulgences. You notice the faint brush of a silk sleeve against a wrist, the subtle tilt of a head inviting eye contact, the slow, deliberate peel of a fruit, its juice glistening in the torchlight, pressed to lips and fingertips in a way that is languid, intimate, deliberate. And yet, nothing is rushed. Time itself seems to stretch and bend, accommodating the luxury of patience, the sweetness of indulgence, the hypnotic flow of sight, scent, touch, and sound. The music, the torchlight, the food, the scents, the movements, all weaved together into a single, continuous experience, drawing attention outward and inward at the same time, coaxing the body and mind into relaxation, into dreamlike absorption, into the gentle embrace of night. As you wander slowly along the perimeter of the hall, guided more by instinct than direction, you take in the mosaics again, the floors, the ceiling, the flicker of light across marble and gold. Every detail is magnified. The subtle pattern of a brocade robe, the gleam of wine in a goblet, the shimmer of candlelight across polished floors. The air is warm and heavy, yet soft against the skin. You feel your pulse slow, your breathing deepen, your mind drawn into the rhythm of the hall, the rhythm of the night, the rhythm of desire suspended in anticipation rather than action. It is here, in the center of this world of abundance and subtle erotic tension, that you feel the full power of the Byzantine court, a place where every sensation is heightened, every glance charged, every touch a promise. The hall is alive, humming with quiet music, with laughter, with the soft brush of silk against skin. You feel as though you have entered a private world, hidden from the ordinary, a place where indulgence is celebrated in all its forms: culinary, aesthetic, tactile, emotional, and in the subtlest ways, sensual. And so you remain, wandering slowly, absorbing the sights, smells, sounds, textures, and touches of the hall. Every step, every breath, every glance draws you deeper into a state of calm arousal, a gentle anticipation, a luxurious relaxation. The world outside ceases to exist. There is only the hall, the music, the scents, the soft flicker of torchlight, the languid movements of the courtiers, and the intoxicating promise of pleasure whispered through every detail of this gilded, perfumed, candlelit night. The music of the banquet hall drifts around you like a soft current, gentle and insistent. Harps pluck delicate notes, their strings vibrating with a subtle warmth that seems to trace along the spine, coaxing the body to sway without conscious command. Flutes sigh, exhaling long, breathy notes that curl through the air like smoke, tangling with the scents of the hall, wrapping around the senses and brushing softly against skin. Even the drums are restrained, low, almost imperceptible at first, yet felt more than heard, a vibration in the floorboards, a pulse that matches the heartbeat, a rhythm that invites the mind to slow, the body to relax, the senses to open fully to the richness of the world around it. The perfumes of the palace are equally mesmerizing. Incense coils from hidden burners, sending wisps of frankincense and myrrh into the warm air. The heady scent of rosewater lingers in the corners, mingling with musk and a faint hint of sandalwood. Each inhalation carries with it a subtle intoxication, a gentle stimulation of memory and desire. You breathe in deeply, allowing the mingling scents to settle across your chest, along the nape of your neck, curling around the arms and fingers, as though each breath draws you further into the hypnotic embrace of the palace. The courtiers move languidly to the music, their bodies swaying subtly in rhythm, not dancing in the modern sense, but moving with a fluidity that is almost animal, almost instinctual. Each step a caress, each glance a whisper of intrigue. Silk skirts brush the marble floor, sleeves trail along smooth surfaces, and in the flickering torchlight, the sheen of gemstones and polished metal catches the eye with delicate, teasing glimmers. Each movement is deliberate, yet effortless, a choreography of suggestion, subtle and intoxicating. Some courtiers recline on cushions, eyes half closed, letting the music wash over them like a warm tide. Fingers hover near goblets, lightly tracing the rims, trailing over fruit and nuts in slow, languid gestures. Hands brush each other by chance, a touch so brief, so fleeting that it might be imagined, yet the effect lingers in the mind. Eyes meet across the room, glances charged with unspoken questions, unvoiced promises, fleeting connections that leave the air itself humming with tension. The music shifts imperceptibly, layering new instruments, new textures. A lyre begins to play softly in the background, plucking notes that echo across the vaulted ceiling. Bells, small and clear, chime delicately, their sound threading through the melodies like tiny sparks. The flute winds through these notes, breathing slow, curved lines that seem to reach toward each listener personally, curling around shoulders, drifting into the spaces between conversation, brushing past ears with a hint of intimacy. The scents of the hall continue to weave together. Musk, honey, rose, incense, the faintest touch of wine and citrus, all merge into a single irresistible perfume that clings lightly to skin, clothing, and hair. The combination is hypnotic, creating an invisible architecture of pleasure, a space in which the body and mind cannot help but relax, drift, and lean into subtle indulgence. The senses are alive, attuned to every variation. The flicker of candlelight across a jeweled ring, the soft movement of silk along a wrist, the warmth of breath, the subtle pulse of a heartbeat in the chest or floor beneath. Courtiers move in patterns that are both deliberate and suggestive. One leans forward, allowing the tip of a finger to brush another's arm in passing. A smile lingers a fraction longer than decorum allows. A hand hovers near a goblet, pauses, and then retreats, as if the delay itself is a private conversation. Even the peel of a fruit, the way juice glistens in torchlight on fingertips and lips, becomes a performance, a sensual, almost sacred act that enthralls both the participant and the observer.
Music, scent, and movement all conspire to create a heightened awareness. Time seems to stretch, elongated by the lingering notes, the slow gestures, the rhythm of breath, the unhurried unfolding of gestures and glances. Even the slightest sound, the clink of a goblet, the rustle of silk, the soft exhale of someone nearby, resonates in the hall as though amplified, drawing attention to the small, delicate pleasures that would otherwise go unnoticed. You move along the periphery of the hall, drawn by the interplay of light, scent, and sound. A flute note curls upward, catching the light of a torch on a golden goblet. You notice the sheen of sweat on a brow, the slow tilt of a head, the faint curve of a smile that hints at stories untold. The air is thick, rich with anticipation, yet calming. Each inhalation a slow caress, each exhalation a gentle release into the world of pleasure surrounding you. The musicians change their tempo subtly, a gentle crescendo that rises and falls like a wave.
Harps pluck faster, but not hurriedly, just enough to make the pulse of the hall quicken slightly, drawing attention to hands and glances, to whispered words and secret movements. The flute sighs in response, curling over the rhythm of the drums, brushing the skin and senses in invisible, delicate caresses. Perfumes shift as well. A fresh scent of jasmine drifts from a side corridor, mingling with the deeper, warmer fragrances already present. Each inhalation draws the attention inward, heightening awareness of the body, of touch, of subtle interaction. You sense every brush of silk against skin, every fleeting contact, every glance that lingers just a heartbeat too long. The eroticism is understated, woven seamlessly into the luxurious fabric of the hall, amplified by the music and scent that surround it. Courtiers begin to speak in hushed tones, their voices barely audible over the music, yet each syllable is heavy with suggestion. Words are chosen carefully, delivered softly, teasingly, carrying weight beyond their meaning. Laughter follows lightly, musical and playful, echoing through the vaulted spaces, blending seamlessly with the instruments and the subtle rhythm of hearts and breath. You pause near a fountain tucked into the hall's side. Water trickles gently, a quiet accompaniment to the melody and movement. The surface of the fountain glimmers with reflected torchlight, and the scents of the surrounding flowers, rose, night-blooming jasmine, faint orange blossom, mingle with the heavier aromas of incense and wine. You lean closer, taking in the scents, the sounds, the subtle warmth in the air, feeling the pulse of the hall resonate through your chest, through your limbs, through your senses. As the music shifts again, the tempo slows, curling around you like silk. Flutes exhale long notes, harps pluck languidly, drums pulse softly. The courtiers move in slower, more deliberate patterns. Fingers trace along goblets, along platters, along the edges of cushions. Hands brush shoulders and wrists, the movement gentle but charged. Eyes meet across the room, lingering with unspoken invitation, and in the flickering torchlight, smiles curl with subtle understanding. The perfume, the music, the silk, the candlelight, all conspire to draw you inward into a world that is intoxicating yet calm, arousing yet soothing. Every sense is engaged, every nerve attuned to the rhythm, to the gesture, to the presence of others. The erotic tension is subtle, implied, omnipresent, in the tilt of a head, the brush of a hand, the lingering gaze, the shared fruit, the gentle warmth of breath. Time continues to stretch, unhurried. The hall is infinite in its richness, its layers of sound, scent, movement, and suggestion. You wander slowly, absorbing, experiencing, surrendering to the rhythm of the music, the perfume, the tactile interplay of silk, skin, and candlelight. Each inhalation, each exhalation, each heartbeat carries you further into the dreamlike, hypnotic embrace of the palace, deeper into the forbidden pleasures that linger in the shadows, in the glances, in the music, in the perfumes that swirl invisibly around you. And so, you remain, moving in gentle circles, guided by the music, the scent, the light, and the subtle erotic energy that hums through the hall. Every glance, every whisper, every brush of fabric against skin, every subtle gesture draws you further into a state of languid indulgence, a quiet, intoxicating anticipation that fills your mind and body, relaxing them in unison, preparing them for the next stage of the night as the pleasures of the Byzantine court continue to unfold softly, endlessly, irresistibly.
The hall begins to dissolve around you, not suddenly, but slowly, as though the music itself is guiding your steps, ushering you through arched doors that open into the night. Beyond the golden-lit banquet chambers, the air changes. The warm press of incense and torchlight gives way to something cooler, fresher, tinged with the scent of damp stone and the faint sweetness of blossoms carried on the night breeze. You step into the gardens. The first thing you notice is the moon. Its light pours over the marble walkways, silver and soft, illuminating the leaves of cypress and olive trees, tracing the edges of fountains and shimmering across the surface of still pools. Lanterns swing gently from carved arches and low branches, their glow golden against the cool silver of moonlight, creating pockets of shadow and illumination. Every space becomes a secret, revealed for a moment, then hidden again. The air here is alive with perfume. Jasmine winds along trellises, its fragrance thick and sweet, a contrast to the sharper, citrusy note of orange blossoms hanging heavy on their branches. Roses cluster along the pathways, their petals opening wide under the moon, releasing a scent that lingers in the throat, full and intoxicating. Somewhere nearby, resin burns faintly, its smoke curling upward, mingling with the cool dampness of the night. The soundscape shifts as well. The music of the banquet hall fades, replaced by something softer, subtler. The trickle of fountains, the splash of water as it falls into carved basins, the whisper of leaves stirred by the breeze. Crickets sing faintly in the distance, and once in a while, the low murmur of a distant voice or laugh drifts across the gardens, barely audible, as though wrapped in secrecy. You move along a stone path, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Beneath your feet, the stones are cool, the faint traces of moisture clinging to them in the night air. On either side, the gardens sprawl in ordered yet wild patterns, hedges carefully trimmed, yet roses allowed to spill across the pathways, jasmine vines curling freely, and fountains positioned so their reflections align with the moon. Silhouettes pass among the gardens. Courtiers who have slipped away from the banquet hall wander here in pairs or alone, their movements slow, lingering, intimate. Cloaks trail across marble, and the rustle of silk is softened by the night air. Two figures pause beneath an arch of roses, their shadows merging for a moment before parting. Another reclines at the base of a fountain, fingers trailing through the water, eyes half closed, as though intoxicated by nothing more than the scent of the blossoms above. The eroticism here is subtler, yet stronger. Where the banquet hall was charged with glances and gestures, the gardens are filled with quiet encounters, half hidden by foliage, veiled by moonlight. A hand lingers too long on another's wrist. A whisper carries between lips, words inaudible, but their intent clear in the charged silence that follows. Breath mingles. The faintest sigh escapes into the night, dissolving quickly into the air. As you wander, your senses sharpen. Each fragrance seems richer here, more potent. Jasmine is heady, thick, almost overwhelming when inhaled deeply. Roses pulse with sweetness, clinging to your clothes and hair as you brush past. Citrus blossoms strike with a sharp, playful brightness, a counterpoint to the deeper, muskier notes of earth and burning resin. The scents combine like a layered chord, building into an invisible music that seeps into your skin, slowing your movements, making each step an act of surrender to the sensory world around you.
Everywhere, the play of shadow and light shapes the atmosphere. The lanterns glow softly, golden, throwing silhouettes onto walls and pathways. The moon paints everything in silver. Leaves, stone, pools of water, and skin. Faces appear briefly in the glow before disappearing into shadow, their expressions unreadable, their intentions hidden. The garden becomes a labyrinth of mystery, desire, and suggestion. You follow a path that curves around a grove of cypress trees. Here, the air is darker, cooler, the scent of resin stronger, mingling with earth and moss. The sound of water grows louder until you emerge into a secluded courtyard where a fountain spills endlessly into a pool. The water glimmers with moonlight, casting ripples across the marble walls. Cushions are strewn along the edges, and a few figures recline here in silence, watching the water, their hands moving slowly over goblets or idly tracing the patterns carved into the stone. The scene feels almost sacred, a ritual of stillness and indulgence in equal measure. Somewhere deeper in the garden, laughter drifts again, softer this time, almost conspiratorial. You catch the faint silhouette of two figures disappearing into an arbor, their hands clasped, their steps unhurried. Their forms are quickly swallowed by roses and shadows, leaving only the echo of their closeness in the air. The longer you remain in the garden, the more dreamlike it becomes. The senses blur together. The fragrance of jasmine feels like silk against the skin. The sound of water feels like breath at the back of your neck. The flicker of lantern light feels like fingers tracing along your collarbone. Nothing is separate. Everything intertwines, weaving into a tapestry of sensation that binds body and mind into a state of suspended desire, unhurried, languid, eternal. Your steps carry you onward, deeper. The palace recedes behind you, its music now only a distant murmur. In its place, the garden expands, endless in its mystery. Each archway reveals another hidden alcove, Each path curves toward another fountain, another secret bench, another shadow where silhouettes move together and apart, gestures bearing unspoken intimacy. The air is warm, fragrant, heavy with possibility. You are no longer merely an observer, you are part of the scene, part of the living, breathing sensuality of the night. Every inhalation deepens the intoxication. Every exhalation releases you further into the spell of the garden. Time stretches, dissolves. Here, in the pleasure gardens of the Byzantine court, desire is not rushed. It unfurls slowly, like the opening of a blossom under moonlight. Every glance, every brush of skin, every breath of perfume, every sound of water is part of the ritual, a rhythm of indulgence and restraint, of revelation and concealment, of intimacy both shared and hidden. And as you drift along the moonlit paths, as the fragrances coil around you, as shadows beckon and whispers echo, you understand this place was built not merely to please the senses, but to dissolve the boundaries between them, to blur the line between body and spirit, to draw you into a state of endless surrender, where time, identity, and the outside world no longer matter. Only this moment exists, only this garden, this moonlight, this intoxicating pleasure. The gardens slowly fade behind you. Moonlight gives way to the dim glow of candlelit corridors, narrower, quieter, secretive. The air is warmer here, infused with the heavy sweetness of incense, mingled with rose, musk, and the faintest whisper of night-blooming jasmine. You sense the weight of anticipation more keenly now. The palace has narrowed its focus, drawing you into its private heart, where mystery and desire intertwine. A small door, half hidden behind a velvet curtain, creaks open. You step inside, greeted by shadows dancing along walls of polished wood and marble. Candles flare in sconces, their flames soft, warm, hypnotic. The room is intimate, enclosed, yet vast in its effect. Here, the music is almost imperceptible, replaced by the gentle trickle of water from a hidden fountain in one corner, the faint murmur of voices behind curtains, of secrets shared in whispered tones. The chamber is scented with herbs and resins carefully burned to coax relaxation and indulgence. Frankincense curls lazily toward the ceiling, mingling with amber and patchouli, sending threads of fragrance along the floor, across the cushions, over silk-draped benches. Every breath you take is layered with scent, and each inhalation draws you deeper into a state of languid awareness, the body softening, the mind slowing. Figures move quietly here, deliberately, in a choreography of subtle suggestion. A hand hovers, then retreats. Eyes meet in the flickering candlelight, glances heavy with invitation, yet restrained enough that your imagination fills the spaces between. The air is thick with anticipation, yet never rushed, never overt, a delicate play of restraint and suggestion that intoxicates more than any overt act.
The walls of the chamber are lined with tapestries depicting the gods and heroes of Byzantine legend. Their forms seem to shift in candlelight, alive with movement. One figure stretches an arm outward, its gesture mirrored by a passing courtier. Another reclines, its gaze turned to the ceiling, and you sense a subtle invitation in the tilt of a head. Shadows stretch and curl, merging with human silhouettes, weaving a tapestry of suggestion, rhythm, and movement. Music returns softly, a single harp string plucking in irregular intervals, a low note resonating in the marble floor. It is the heartbeat of the chamber, slow and steady, connecting all who move within it. The faintest murmur of voices, perhaps spell recitation, perhaps whispered confidences, coils around the senses. Every syllable carries weight, every pause carries tension, every breath carries possibility. Cushions and low benches are scattered with a deliberate lack of order, inviting recline and rest, allowing bodies to relax fully, blending with the soft silk drapery that lines the walls. Fingers trace the edges of cushions, fingertips graze the polished marble, silk slides across skin. Every gesture is slow, measured, heightened by awareness of proximity, by the knowledge of other presences, by the silent, subtle eroticism that saturates the room. Here, intimacy is not a rush of physical action, but a deep immersion into sensation. The smell of musk clings to skin, mingling with amber and rose. The sound of a breath, a whisper, a soft movement becomes a pulse in the room. Candlelight flickers, highlighting eyes, tracing lips, illuminating the delicate line of a wrist with a curve of a shoulder. Each moment is drawn out, elongated, allowing perception to drink in the details fully, fully aware, fully present. A figure steps close, the warmth of their presence brushing your arm as they move past. Their movement is slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial, and yet the effect is intimate, a shared proximity, a closeness charged with potential, with suggestion, with quiet erotic tension. Another glances back over their shoulder, lips curling in a subtle smile that promises connection, yet leaves the details suspended, teasing imagination.
The chamber is alive with whispers, the murmur of silk against silk, the soft tap of fingertips along marble, the faint brush of skin along skin. Even when nothing overt occurs, the air is thick with suggestion, with intimacy, with the knowledge that desire exists in multiple forms, imagined, suggested, fleeting yet profoundly felt. The fountain in the corner adds its own rhythm. Water spills endlessly into a basin, a soft cadence that mirrors the body's slow pulse, the quiet rise and fall of breath, the gentle sweep of silk across floors and cushions. Reflections shimmer in its surface, capturing candlelight, silhouettes, shadows, and fragments of movement. It is a living mirror of the room itself, doubling the subtle eroticism in gentle, hypnotic waves. Perfume, sound, shadow, and touch combine to create an immersive, dreamlike state. You feel your senses heighten, Every flicker of candlelight, every breath, every movement of silk, every ripple in the fountain becomes amplified, magnified, inviting total immersion. You begin to drift in this space, absorbed fully into the tapestry of sensation, the whispered intimacies, the hypnotic rhythm of candlelight, scent, and water. The courtiers, the chamber, the music, the shadows, all work together in unhurried, deliberate orchestration. Every glance is a story, every gesture a question, every whisper a promise. Yet nothing is overt, nothing is rushed. The eroticism here is subtle, pervasive, enchanting. It resides in anticipation, in imagination, in the tactile awareness of proximity and presence. Time becomes fluid. Minutes stretch into hours. Your awareness dissolves into sensation. Candlelight flickers across marble, silk, and skin. Perfume drifts, weaving invisible patterns through the air. Water trickles in an endless rhythm. Music hums in harmony with your heartbeat. Every shadow and light, every whisper, every subtle touch blends into a continuous, immersive experience that carries you deeper into relaxation, into indulgence, into calm, dreamlike surrender. Finally, the activity slows. Figures recline on cushions, eyes half closed, breathing measured, bodies relaxed. Music softens until it is almost silent. Water trickles quietly, the fragrance lingers faintly, and the candlelight dims to a soft amber glow. The chamber exhales with you. You feel the pulse of the room, the palace, and the night ease in unison. Tension unwinds, muscles relax, mind quiets, breath becomes slow, even, a gentle rhythm in sync with the subtle cadences of the chamber. Here in the secret chamber, the Byzantine court's hidden pleasures dissolve into calm. The eroticism becomes soft, whispered, remembered more than enacted, a gentle thread through the senses that guides the body and mind towards serenity. You are fully immersed in sensation, fully attuned to presence, fully absorbed into the dreamlike embrace of the palace. The whispers fade, candlelight dims further. Water trickles slowly into silence. The night outside presses softly against the walls, calm and steady. You feel yourself drifting, carried on the rhythm of breath, of fragrance, of shadow and light. The indulgences of the night remain in memory, in the body, in the lingering warmth along skin and spine. And as the chamber empties, as the music falls silent, as the scents dissipate, you are left in a gentle, peaceful quiet. The palace itself exhales. The night absorbs the last flickers of activity. Your body is relaxed, your mind calm, your senses softened, but still tingling with the faintest echo of indulgence. You are ready to drift fully into sleep, carried by the memory of the court, the garden, the music, the whispers, the fragrances, and the subtle, lingering promise of pleasure that now resides in dreams.